In addition to Microsoft SQL Server, you should also keep the Azure Cosmos DB solution or service in mind as well. It's a great database service. It's a NoSQL database service. And you can see here on the service homepage, it says it's a globally distributed multi-master database service. Now, if we scroll down on this homepage here for the service, you can see some more details about it. But basically, Azure built this service from the ground up. Its global distribution and horizontal scale makes it a very interesting option for very busy applications with lots of users. And you can add copies of your data to Azure regions all over the world really easily. So definitely an interesting option. But if you haven't gotten into the NoSQL type of database solution, it may not be on your radar just yet. So let me show you a couple things that might be interesting for you as you move forward here. So here in the Azure portal, what I did is I went over to Azure Cosmos DB and I created an account. And let me show you that real quick. There's not a lot to it. I just went to add, I created an account here. So I put a unique account name under documents.azure.com. And the reason it says documents is because if you haven't worked with this, essentially what we're doing is we're storing records in Azure Cosmos DB as JSON documents. If you take a look at the available APIs, we can use MongoDB, Cassandra, we can use SQL. There's all kinds of different ways that we can interact with this service using traditional client libraries that we've had all these years. But really the most important thing that I want to show you here is if we scroll down on the list, you can see that we have the option to enable geo-redundancy. And it's defaulting this account to Australia East for the location, but I could pick something else. And you can see in this pop-up here, it says, if we enable global distribution on the accounts, we can pair Australia East with Australia Southeast, and we can add more regions as we move forward. There's also the multi-master preview. This is an interesting feature where you've got the ability to write to Cosmos DB containers everywhere in the world at the same time with less than 10 milliseconds of latency. So in terms of having a place to store your data from your applications, this is a very interesting solution, but I already went through and created all of this because it does take a minute to kind of spin everything up. So let's go into the properties of this one I already created. You can see here the right location is East US. So I created the Cosmos DB account here in East US, and notice in the read locations, I've got East US, West US, and North Central US. So basically I've got multiple copies of my data. If you take a look here in the regions, we can see those represented on the map. Now, the way I did that is after I created my accounts, I came over here to replicate data globally under settings. And I scrolled down the list and I added multiple regions to basically build read copies of my data that I could eventually manually fail over to, or I could automatically fail over to in the event of a regional outage here in Azure. And with automatic failover, we can basically fail over to any of these readable copies when there's an issue in that writable region if that region actually goes down. So let's take a look at automatic failover here. This is not turned on by default, but if you do turn this on, you can list your read copies or your read regions in priority. So if East US, that region actually went down, we can failover automatically to the West US region if we need to. And then for any additional copies that we got out there, we would just follow the priority number as we go forward. Now, I'm not actually going to load any data into this account. I'm not going to build any collections in this account and set anything up, but I did want to point out the fact that you can set up geo-replication with this database service as well. And again, this is something that Microsoft is invested in heavily, and I would expect you to see lots of innovations in this service as time goes forward. So maybe something to keep on your radar, something very interesting for your applications. And that brings us to the end of this module. Let's go to the next video. We'll do a quick module summary to recap some of the important points that we covered so far.